So Barack Obama gave a speech in Europe, and he took a snipe at progressives while doing so, saying that the left is being rigid and that we have purity tests and that we're creating circular firing squads. So obviously he's sniping at the left when he's saying this once again, which has been more and more of a pattern recently with him. And obviously the irony in that is that he is sniping once again and kind of creating a circular firing squad from the establishment side of things once again, which in reality it's just that we have different ideas and that progressives criticized establishment Democrats for not having the ideas that we want implemented and that we think should be fought for, and then they don't want to fight for the policies that we're pushing them to try and fight for. So obviously there's just a disagreement there, so they're sniping on both sides, and that's perfectly legitimate because it's politics and that people need to fight for what they want. So let's go to the video and I'll talk about it more.
One of the things I do worry about sometimes among progressives in the United States, maybe it's true here as well, is a certain kind of rigidity where we say, I'm sorry, this is how it's going to be. And then we start sometimes creating what's called a circular firing squad, where you start shooting at your allies.
So I find this super annoying when Barack Obama does this, because once again, he goes about this by saying the same old establishment Democrat thing, only he thinks that he's being more eloquent about it just because he's a better speaker than most people are. So then here we go again with him saying, well, yeah, you don't have a purity test. And just as part of a nuanced argument, I don't agree with having a purity test to the point where if anything that a candidate does that falls outside of your realm of wanted policies, that all of a sudden you just say, all right, they're canceled. Obviously, that's not what I'm advocating for. But then you do have a case where if you're a progressive, there are certain major tentpoles to what you want done with the country. And if a candidate's not willing to do most of those things, then why would you support them? Just because they're a Democrat? And this continues to be a thing that they just think, well, we're Democrats. So whether we're moderate or whether we're progressive, you just throw that D on your hat and you go out and vote for us. And most of the time, there are plenty of times where we get forced to voting for a moderate Democrat. Just like in my area alone, like I've had to vote for Bob Casey. Bob Casey is no progressive champion. But is Bob Casey better than whatever Republicans running against him? Yes. So you get forced into doing it a lot. But in terms of primary challenges, I am more than happy if somebody comes out that is far more progressive than Bob Casey to vote for that person in the primary. Like, I have no attachment to Bob Casey. I'm not just going to keep Bob Casey in there just because he's the incumbent Democrat that won before. So I'm just going to keep voting for him because I'm team Bob Casey. I'm not team Bob Casey. And nobody should be team establishment Democrat unless you legitimately agree with the platform that they're putting forward. If you agree with their platform, obviously I disagree with you, but have at it. But if you're just going to go around and say, well, you know, he is the incumbent and I just want to see a Democrat in there, I don't care if they're not pushing for most of the stuff that I want, I just want him in, then that's a problem. Why would you do that? Because you're selling yourself short and you're selling a party short of what you want it to be. So you have a chance to influence that and vote the way that you genuinely feel the country should go, or that your area should go, or that your representative should go. So if you want Medicare for all and you feel like that is one of the most important things in this country right now, that is one of the most important policy proposals to get by, and then your candidate in the primary, for the Democratic primary, in your area, your senator, your representative, or even your presidential candidate, they don't support Medicare for all, then you have the right to call them out on that and say, hey, I'm one of your constituents, I want you to support Medicare for all. And if you're not going to support Medicare for all, I'm going to support this other candidate that says that they support Medicare for all, or even better yet, I'm not even going to try and force you to support Medicare for all at this point, because I'm just going to go and vote for the other person. And if you want to come over and realize that you're losing votes because of that, and that you want to support it to get to get people's support back, just in case you win in the primary, but you still need a lot more turnout to beat the Republican in your district, then, or in a national election, then that's great. But you gotta stick to what you want done with the country. And progressives are doing that. That's not a thing where the left is backing off on that, because we know that Medicare for all is one of the most important things in this entire country right now. We know getting money out of politics is one of the most important things in this entire country right now. We know that making college free to the public, or tax paid, I should say, for public colleges. We know that tuition-free public college is very important now. We know that the Green New Deal is of utmost importance. So all of these things, we need them done. Partially, the Green New Deal is of crazy importance because, like I said, that's a thing that's world-changing if you can get that done. Because these things are just not F-around issues. Maybe in the past, politics seemed like it used to be a different bubble. And I'm going to try and illustrate this the best that I can. This is just the way that I see it. It used to be a different bubble where it was politics is politics. But now in the modern day, maybe partially because of social media, but I think partially just because of a changing of ideas, a changing in culture, among just a more open-mindedness among the electorate. I think you have something happen now where people realize, and they should realize this, people realize that it's not about just voting for a team or voting for somebody that somewhat agrees with you or just getting involved in it because it's politics. Because a lot of these things that a lot of people started just kind of saying, oh, well, that's off in that bubble. Just hit the mic. That's off in that bubble. It's not just a politics bubble. It's lives that we're talking about. So foreign policy, regime change wars, that's going to cost thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives every time. Some Americans, some foreign citizens. Some obviously could be terrorists or supporters of another regime that we're trying to oust. But at the same time, either way, you're still costing people lives. And it's just not, it's not something that's acceptable anymore. Regime change wars and spending money that we need for infrastructure and that we need for public education and that we could be using to fund tuition-free public college and that we could be using to help fund Medicare for all. No, it's just not going to happen anymore that we're going to let you use that money on regime change wars. It's costing people lives. It's costing people their lives. So at the end of the day, I think it's gotten more real for a lot of people. And healthcare is one of these things where for whatever reason, for the longest time, it got pushed off as, well, let's cover more people and let's make it more affordable for people. But now there is so much evidence out there that a universal healthcare system, a single-payer system, is so much more efficient than any system that we've ever employed. It's more efficient than Obamacare, and it's more efficient than the system that we had before Obamacare. So, just at the end of the day, we realize that we can save millions of lives and insure millions of people over years and years and years if we actually get that system in place. So, the fact that we see that, if you're a moral person and you say, well, this system could really save people, and you see elected officials that are supposedly on your side not supporting a system that could save people's lives and save a lot of people that are in their party's lives and can make sure that they get the treatment they need to maybe save their lives further down the line, and they're not supporting it, and the only reason they're not supporting it is because they're paid off by pharmaceutical companies or they're paid off by health insurance companies, then you're going to be like, you know what? That's really fucked up, and it's hard to really respect that person for doing that. And that's where the conversation has shifted, and that's where it needed to go, because people need to realize, you know what? A lot of these policies are life and death, and a lot of these policies are life-changing for people and could pull people out of poverty and could save our world as we know it in terms of climate change. So we need these policies to be in place. It is not something where it's like, you know what? I kind of just disagree with them, so you know what? Fuck them. It is literally, no, Medicare for all needs to be the way that we go, because that's the way that we're going to save all American lives. Not, obviously, I don't mean that in a way where we're literally going to save everyone's life. Obviously, people are still going to have diseases that aren't treatable. Some people are going to have terminal cancer. It's going to happen on a more morbid note. But we can actually insure everybody and help make sure that they have access to treatment, no matter what their income is. No matter where they're at in the country, we can help make sure that they have good access to quality health care. And to beat around the bush and not do that, it's just wrong at the end of the day. To just have a system that's right there and it's like, you know what? There are plenty of examples of this being successful and far better than our system, and it costs less over 10 years. The Mercatus Center study, that's a Koch brothers funded institute, that libertarian study found that Medicare for all would save $2 trillion over 10 years. And then in another study by UMass Amherst, it found that it would save, I think it was around, I want to say a little over around 3 to 3.5 trillion over 10 years. I think it was somewhere around the overall cost of the current system, it was saying, would be a little bit over 3.24 trillion, and then the rest of it would be 2.93 trillion per year if we switched over to the Medicare for all from our current system. So you have it right in front of your face. It's more affordable. It gets better outcomes. It covers everyone. But at the end of the day, there's people that won't bend to that, and it's just, you want to save people's lives, and you want to make sure that people have the security to know that they're not going to go bankrupt for medical bills, and that they're not going to get taken to the emergency room and given a $30,000 bill that they will never be able to afford. So, or that they push off getting treatment because it's too expensive, and the next thing you know, they have cancer that progressed too far for them to even treat it anymore. So you have so many things that are wrong with the current system that you need to have fixed. And to say, well, let's keep slapping Band-Aids on it, you're like, no, because that's still going to cost people their lives. And it's right in front of your face that this system works. There's no disputing it. And if you're going to oppose that for some random reason because you're corrupt, or because for some reason ideologically you disagree with that, then we're going to vote you out. And we're going to put somebody in that's going to get this done because we need it done. And that's the be-all, end-all. So Barack Obama can talk about purity tests and rigidity all he wants, but really the rigidity is in the establishment side, because they're the ones that are resisting all these policy ideas that we're bringing forward. They're backed up by fact. And we're telling you, here are the facts of the situation, here's what we need to do to get this done, and here's what we need to fight for. And they're saying, well, let's be reasonable, or let's be realistic. And then you have Nancy Pelosi calling things a Green New Dream when it's something that we genuinely need to get done, and that we really need to get to the grindstone about how we're going to get it passed, and how we're going to fight for it, and how we're going to frame it to the public, and how we're going to continue to frame it to make sure that we get it passed, and to make sure that we get the votes that we need in 2020 to be able to have people in these branches of government to get something like that passed. So it's nonsense to say that the left is being too rigid. I mean, are there some people that are super rigid where it's like, if Bernie Sanders has one flaw that they disagree with, even though he supports 99% of the policies that they want, where all of a sudden they'll be slamming them for it and say that they wouldn't support him? There may be like one out of every God knows how many people that does that. But for the most part, people are just saying, no, you need to be in favor of progressive tentpole policies like Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, investing in infrastructure, investing in public education, expanding Social Security, universal child care, universal or paid family leave, legalizing marijuana. These are things that are reasonable. These are things that are backed up by fact. And these are things that need to get done. And these are things that can make our country exponentially better. So the fact that we don't do these things, it's just ridiculous. And there's no reason to be unreasonable and elect people that just because they had the seat but they don't support what the people want, that we just say, well, you know what, they are a Democrat and they have the seat already, so let's not even challenge them. Let's just leave them be. No, if you're a Democrat that's not meeting our quote-unquote purity test, then you better be ready to get challenged, because you're probably going to get kicked out of there, because the country needs better, and the country needs some of these policies done, because the longer that we go without fighting for these policies, the longer we go where people are losing their lives unnecessarily, the longer we go where people aren't getting the health care that they need unnecessarily, the longer we go towards having a world that is ravaged by climate change unnecessarily. So these things have to get done. People being burdened by student debt unnecessarily. People getting prison sentences for marijuana unnecessarily. So there are so many unnecessary problems that don't need to be happening, and we just have to cut it out. And we have to vote for people that will cut it out, and that will fight for the right things. And if you're not willing to fight for the people, then the people are going to vote you out. No purity test, no rigidity. You're the ones that are being rigid to the stuff that overwhelming amount of the American public wants, and especially an overwhelming amount of your base wants. So just fuck off with it. Get in line with what the people want. It's not that we get in line with what the establishment wants. Period. And that's end of story. So Barack Obama, I think he's just out of touch. He's centristy. He disagrees, and because now he's outnumbered, and because people are slamming him for not being progressive enough when he was president, now he resents that a little bit, and he flares out or flails out, and he attacks progressives because he resents progressives for kind of, I think he views us as tarnishing him a little bit on the left, because he feels like he should be championed as a left hero. And then people are like, no, you didn't fight hard enough for things that we needed. So he gets criticized more on the left than he would like, and I think he then turns around and snipes back and says that we're too rigid. But really, it's the other way around, and the rigidity on the establishment end has to stop.